Through adversity is when we grow the most, is when we learn the most, is when God uses us the most. But he says, when you are weak, I am strong. And so God is our strength through it when we're having those weak moments, which we all have. God told me going through this cancer journey early on, he really impressed on me that I was to share my story. He told me it was going to inspire and encourage thousands and thousands of people, which it did, and still is encouraging people.
Welcome back to Mic'd Up. I'm your host, Mike DiCioccio, and today our guest is an inspirational speaker, a marketing coach, and a relationship building expert with more than 30 years of experience helping leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals grow their business and their life through authentic connection. He's also the creator of multiple community-driven platforms, live streams, podcasts, and coaching programs focused on turning conversations into meaningful relationships, and those relationships into lasting opportunity and impact. And through his work, he's helped countless people shift their mindset from selling into serving, and from building audiences to actually building true communities. Welcome back to the show, my friend, Russ Hedge.
Hey, Mike, what a blessing to be here with you. Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you being here, brother. I love, throughout the year, guys, Russ is one of my favorite people who he'll send me a random text message. Hey, just thinking about you, praying for you. And Russ, I want you to know, I've never maybe told you this directly, but that goes a long way, and I do appreciate it. And I appreciate the love and the prayers and you thinking about me and my family when I know you got a lot going on yourself. So you're a real dude. You're someone who I just really appreciate having in my network. And so I'm happy to invite you back on for the second time now. And if anyone wants to know more of your previous story or kind of what we talked about on that first episode, I'll link that in the show notes and you guys can check it out. Also, your website is russhedge.com. You got a new book out that we're going to be talking about, and everything is linked in our show notes, guys. So you don't have to go and try to spell it or type it in. Click on it in the description if you're watching on YouTube. Thank you for being with us. If you're on Apple or Spotify or any of those audio podcast players, it's right there in the show notes and clickable as well. Russ, before we get back to your story, I got to say, we're recording this just not that long, like a week after the Super Bowl, huge Super Bowl, Seahawks dominant victory for you and your family. And I think I caught this that you were actually in Seattle partying with your family. I think it was your son. So give us a scoop on that experience before we get back to your story. That's awesome.
It was such a blessing, so much fun. My son and daughter-in-law actually live in LA, so they're closer to where the Super Bowl was, but they flew up to spend time with her family and celebrate the Super Bowl, which was great. And they wanted us to come up, our family, but nobody could really make it except for me. And I at first wasn't going to go, but they sent me train tickets and said, come on up, Dad, we're going to take care of you. So they did. I went up there. I'd never ridden the train to Seattle, which was a ton of fun. The train station gets right off by Luma, that stadium, right, where the Seahawks play. So it's all lit up. It was night. It was really cool. And yes, watched the Super Bowl up there with my son and his wife's family and friends. And it was so much fun. Of course, we're all huge Seahawk fans. So they dominated, obviously, because a huge part because of their defense. And it was just amazing and so much fun. Really, really enjoyed it.
I did too, as a Western New Yorker growing up in Buffalo, New York. The team that dominated us for all those years was the Tom Brady Patriots. So anytime the Patriots lose, my hometown is always celebrating it. And now I live in Philly, and most of the people I was talking to were also rooting for Seattle. So it was, and my buddy who I just happened to catch up with, he was Sam Darnold's high school football coach. I just happened we went and got Philly cheesesteaks on Friday, and a couple days later watching the Super Bowl, and he's watching Sam Darnold, a kid that he actually coached in high school, which is pretty cool, right?
That's
and
really
he was
cool.
showing me on his phone, he was getting text messages from Sam's dad in the moment. So that was pretty cool.
That is awesome.
It was a little bit of a boring Super Bowl, but it was one where the result was happening what we wanted. When it was 9-0, I'm thinking, I don't love this because it's just one touchdown and they're back in it. If they had Tom Brady and it was 9-0, I'd be like, the Seahawks are probably going to lose this game. But the fact that it was a young Drake May who was making a lot of mistakes, I'm like, just keep pressing them, and I think they're going to be okay. And that ended up being the case. So what a cool moment. Now, you say, obviously, you guys were rooting for Seattle. I forget in your story, did you grow up in Seattle? I thought also part of Canada. Was that connecting?
Well,
or is my brain just fried?
No, you're fine. Actually, because Portland and Oregon does not have a professional football team.
Yeah.
Most people root for the Northwest team, which is the Seahawks. Okay. There's a few stragglers that root for California teams, but the biggest chunk of people are Seahawk fans. And so my kids went to college in Seattle, and so they both lived up there after college for 8-10 years. And so we were been around Seattle a lot. And then, of course, my daughter-in-law's family is from the Seattle area. So, yeah, it's a lot of Seattle ties.
I remember, obviously, Portland the last couple of times, and you had me on your show a few times, which I'm grateful for. And we always talk about Portland. So that makes sense there. But am I just making up the thing about Canada, or did you guys ever live in Canada or no?
We never lived in Canada. In fact,
I'm hallucinating.
Oregon, born and raised. And
cool.
I was born in Salem, and I live in Salem now. So there you go.
Awesome, man. So let's talk about you. Like, how are you doing? I appreciate the Russ selfie updates that we get on LinkedIn and Facebook. And you're just keeping in touch with me through your text messages. But let the people know, if anyone's tuning into you, part 2 of your story here today. How are you doing? I know you've been battling with adversity. Last time you shared the story about the car accident that you survived and how that helped build your faith over time. Now you're dealing with, melanoma that started from your foot. How's that going?
Well, the good news is that as of my scans in October, no sign of disease. So I went from stage 4 to cancer-free, and I just had scans again in January, and they were the same result. So that is a blessing. I thank God for that every day. Still dealing with a lot of struggles with all the stuff that came from the cancer treatment. I have amazing doctors, and I'm very thankful for them. And it's not that anything that they did, but the treatment itself didn't like my body. And there's different drugs they used to do the immunotherapy. And so a lot of lasting effects, unless God chooses to heal that, which would be great. But a lot of lasting effects from the cancer treatment that I have to take care of. But the good news is I can deal with that. I'm alive. I'm thankful. And every day I just take one step at a time and learn how to overcome little challenges here and there.
Amen, brother. That's what an amazing update right there. So from stage 4, cancer-free, now you just have to keep following up on treatments, and they obviously are testing to make sure it's not coming back or there's any setbacks or anything like that. But those visits, obviously you go there. You got to be smart. That's how you discovered it in the first place, right? You had a lump on your foot. I think your wife said, hey, why don't you get that checked out? You thought, oh, it's no big deal. Maybe I'll get it removed. But then when you found out what it was, different story. When life tests your faith the most, right? It reveals what your foundation is actually built on. And I know for you, going way back, after that car accident, you mentioned your wife kind of showed you the way to the Lord, and that was a big part of your story. That was many years ago. Now with this test, I got to ask, you're strong in faith. I mean, I know you were worship, you were leading the worship team. I know your daughter leads the worship team at your church, or at her church. So you have a big foundation there, but I don't want to assume that it hasn't taken any hits here over the last couple of years. Can you talk about the difficult season you've been in and how that relationship with God has grown over the last couple of years, or been challenged? I don't know. I mean, I don't know where you're at.
People always think that because I was a worship pastor and I was a licensed pastor for years. And my daughter is a pastor as well, does worship, but also does a lot of other things. And a lot of times people think, oh, you're a pastor, you don't have problems, you're not ever doubting and all this kind of stuff. And anytime you hear you have cancer, it's difficult. And as it progresses, when you find out that it's stepped up, I went from 2A to 3C to stage 4, and all those steps along the way can be difficult, especially with what comes along with it with some of the treatment. But I tell you that my foundation of God was never shaken. I always knew God was there with me. Even if sometimes I had my own little issues and all that, I always knew God was there. I was so blessed to just have such a strong support system around me, my beautiful wife and family, and amazing friends like you, Mike, that really have given me strength. And I always say that I had somewhat of an unfair advantage because God created me with this really positive perspective and mindset. It's kind of my makeup to start with. My mama was the happiest person alive. She went through Alzheimer's and was still the happiest person alive all the way through it. And so I inherited that. And so, yes, sometimes things are really hard. And yes, there's times I'm not happy and things are not good. But I always keep that good perspective. That's what my book's about. Life Happens and Then You Choose is all about keeping a good perspective in the midst of adversity, because that adversity can be hard. People know me as the happy, upbeat guy, and they jokingly say, well, no, I think some people are serious. They say, you're happy all the time, right? I'm like, no. Yeah. When I was sick and had fevers and had broken out in rashes all over my body, and all these things are going on, and I'm in bed and I can't walk because of my foot, right, and all this stuff going on, I was not happy. But I knew that there were better things ahead, that there was hope, that God was still going through this with me. My dad used to always say, tomorrow's a new day. All about keeping a good perspective. You wake up tomorrow after a good night's sleep, you have a fresh perspective, you have a fresh start to your day. Sometimes that's what we need, is just take a deep breath and start with a fresh perspective. And so that's what I've done.
Blank page in the book, right? You wake up tomorrow, blank page in the book. Life happens, but then you get to choose what that next page looks like, right? So,
exactly.
What makes a great podcast guest? A great podcast host. And guys, that's what Russ is. He's a great podcast host, and he maybe is peeking in my notes, because literally my next question was, tell us about your latest book, Life Happens and Then You Choose. So tell me about when you thought, because you had the other book, which was called Befuddled. And we talked about that last time. So what made you think, hey, I got more in me, there's something more here, to a little bit of a different concept about this idea that life could give you, lemons, you turn it into lemonade, is the mindset, right? But give us more about, obviously, when did you write the book, and what do you want people to learn from it?
Well, it's interesting because I never thought, and I probably mentioned this before, but I never thought I'd write a book. And I had encouragement from my good friend, D. Scott Smith, who we sat down to coffee about 4 months before COVID and talked to me about writing a book. And that's where Befuddled, Live the Life You Choose came out of. And that is all about not living befuddled, but living the life you choose. So really the books have a lot of continuity between the two. But people would say to me, some people would say, oh, I can't live the life I choose. I can't choose what happens to me. And I would say, you're right. You can't choose what happened to you, but life happens and then you choose. And I said that so much that my friend Scott said, that's your next book. But because of the cancer journey, I wasn't really able to dive into it right off the bat. And I actually wrote 4 anthologies in between, which were a chapter in 4 different books, which were all international bestsellers, #1 on Amazon, all that. So that was a lot of fun, a lot less work, because it was just one chapter and somebody else did all the heavy lifting. But when it got down to it this last year, I really felt like God impressing in me that I needed to get this book done. And I always say, God's not done with me yet, which is a chapter in the book.
I see that on you have that on your shirt, your hoodie. Yeah.
And so I said, I was talking to God and saying, okay, so does that mean when I write this book, you're going to be done with me? And so I said, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do it. I'm going to just bear down and make it happen. So I really got going, and I wrote most all the book last year. And it was really even experiences up until the month before I published it are in that book. And so once I published it it came out in October, somewhere in there, whatever. It came out just before I went to the doctor, got my scans, and found out no sign of disease. So
Wow.
after the book was published, I actually found out the cancer was not there anymore. And so it's such a blessing on that. But this book is just an inspiration and an encouragement for people in life, no matter what you're going through, no matter what that looks like. We all have stuff. We all have things going on, but you always get to choose. So life is happening, but you get to choose where you go with that, what you do, what your perspective and mindset is. And that's what it's all about.
You know, your shirt says, or the hoodie that I've seen you in many pictures wearing, God's not done with me yet, right? And you just talked about the idea that you wrote the book. At the time the book came out, you found out that you didn't have cancer anymore, and it was a beautiful celebration. But as you're writing it and planning on the release, you didn't know the outcome. You didn't know where you'd be at, or physically and mentally and emotionally where you'd be at. But the idea of God's not done with me yet, you know, something and that I've learned over time is, you know, we're messengers of his word, his story. And a lot of times the most adversity and the people that end up going through some really, really tough adversity, it sounds weird to say it this way, but it's like it happened for me, not to me. Right?
Right.
Like the adversity, you're not saying, you don't wake up one day and say, yeah, God, bring it on. Melanoma, sure, come on, stage 4, sure, let's do it. But the fact is that happened, and through the way you've handled it, the way you've taught through it, the lessons that you learn that you share and turn into inspiring moments, and the way that you positively continue to post on your social media and continue to show up on your podcast. I know you have like over 500 episodes and stuff. You just keep going, you're consistent. And right there, it just tells me you're a beautiful reflection of what God can do in someone's heart, and that you don't just have it happen to you and then that's the end of the story. It's how does it
Yeah.
now reflect like a million mirrors out into other people, so I can learn
Sure.
from you, or you can send me a message as you're struggling through something, and now all of a sudden that made my day, and now I'm living a brighter day because of Russ. And it's really God, you know, beaming that light through you. And then
Yeah.
because of where your heart's at, that's how it changes, how that reflects through, right? Someone who maybe is closed up or struggling and maybe doesn't have that relationship with God, it doesn't shoot out and shine on to other people the same way, right? So I think that's a big part of your story.
Yeah. Well, I definitely agree, because I think, well, first of all, I give all glory to God for everything, so
Mm-hmm.
all that's happened through me is because of God working in me and through me. And you're right. Through adversity is when we grow the most, is when we learn the most, is when God uses us the most. When he says, when you are weak, I am strong. And so God is our strength through it when we're having those weak moments, which we all have. And I have been blessed to, and right off the bat, Mike, God told me going through this cancer journey early on, he really impressed on me that I was to share my story. And I'd always been the happy guy. I did not share negative things on social media. I did not share my dirty laundry, my garbage, my bad moments.
Mm-hmm.
But this journey with cancer, he told me, was going to inspire and encourage thousands and thousands of people, which it did, and still is encouraging people. And so I was blessed to be able to take action on what God was telling me to do. My first post that I put out there on LinkedIn had, I can't remember, like 30,000 people.
Impressions, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it was just like I had thousands and thousands of comments, people praying for me in crazy places around the world. And I had pastors and just regular people in all these other countries. Some of them recorded audio prayers. Some of them actually called me, and it was just crazy. It was just amazing what God did. But I was really working to encourage other people through it. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, I was receiving so much encouragement and support.
Yeah, it was fueling up your heart too, and giving you that extra strength on those dark days, right? In those moments
Yeah,
of realizing how many people love you, people you maybe never met, didn't even know existed, are sitting there
right.
rooting for you and praying for you from all across the world. I saw that too, and that actually encouraged and inspired me through your story. As I'm, look at all these people rooting for Russ, like this is great.
Yeah,
And yeah, the horrible story is the reality of what's happening, but the reaction and that now you choose part of the story is what gets you inspired. And
right.
so I want to actually transition a little bit into your business, and all has a key element, key themes, like you said, a consistent theme from book to book and from your podcasts, the different things that you're doing in the community, on social media as well. But as we transition over to that, the message centers on authentic connection and building genuine relationships, something that you do really well. It's in a world that today feels kind of transactional, right? A lot of people just blasting and posting ghosts on social media. It gets really surface level. Can you share a time when maybe, I don't know if it was recently, but just a time when you realized how important relationships are to what matters most in your life? Did you
Well,
have that realization, or was it just something that maybe you were taught from a young age, like just focus on real key relationships in your life?
I think that I naturally had some of that in me, God given from the get go, but I learned a lot over time. Two specific times where I've learned the importance of relationships and how important they are to life and to your business and everything. One of them was the hashtag Russ selfie. When I first actually started taking selfies, the reason I bring that up is because I learned when people have fun together and they do something crazy like a selfie and they don't even know each other, how suddenly when you put that on social media and tag people and the next time you see them, they're giving you a big hug and it's like you're their long lost friend. And suddenly they're paying attention to you and they're following your story and they're supporting you. And that whole thing we talk about in business, the know, like, and trust factor grows exponentially, but it's because of the relationship. And it all starts with that moment with the selfie. In fact, I've even done a workshop, Mike, on selfie marketing because
Hmm.
I accidentally fell into all this with the hashtag Russ selfie. I never
Yeah.
realized what kind of an impact it would really have. The other thing was my cancer story, obviously, what I told you before, the kind of support and impact it's had on my personal life, connections, community, and even my business has been, wow, astronomical, really, just from people following my story and wanting to be part of what I'm all about. And a lot of times people will say to me, Mike, you're so kind to what you just said. People will say something about how I inspired them through this. And then they'll say, hey, how can I help you out? How can I help your business? What can I do for you? That kind of thing. So it expands beyond just the personal to even be able to work together and do other stuff. Because really, friends help friends. People like to work with people they
Hmm.
know, like, and trust, which are people with relationships that they know. And so people like that. They like to be able to give to people that they know. They like to get things from people they know. And so it's really important.
It's changing the idea of selling into an idea of serving, I feel like, right?
Right.
Where now
Yep.
you're thinking about how can I serve you? How can I help you? And then yeah, there may be a thing where now they're working with you or you're getting business from it, but you're really doing it first and how I can help out and serve. So can you
Exactly.
talk about that mindset shift from a selling
Oh, yeah.
mentality to a serving mentality?
Well, oh my goodness. I mean, I think when you give to others and bless others, it always comes back to bless you. A friend of mine, Bob Berg, who wrote The Go Giver, he and
Yep.
John David Mann, and John David Mann, by the way, is going to be, he's a New York Times bestselling author. He was on my live stream here a while back. He's going to be on another one this week about authors. But the two of them are amazing. The Go Giver concept was just such an amazing concept that I was totally in tune with. I believe that 100%. And I think when you do that and you're also looking to bless other people, get to know people, build relationships first, everything else falls into place. Must reading, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, super important. And I do a workshop on cold calling called How to Turn Cold Calling into Making Friends. It's a combination from wisdom from Dale Carnegie and other people. But what I used to teach my sales teams about selling, Mike, is go in the door. First of all, find out about who you're going to see. Know who you're going to see. Ask for them by name. Know about them. Know what they like. Get information on them to be good with. Find them in a community group. Get to know them before you ever walk through the door. But if you walk through the door and you've never talked to them or gotten to know them, the whole thing is about building a relationship and talking to them and making friends, not about selling something. That all comes later. And so I think with that whole mindset about making friends, building relationships, building community first, and giving to others first, everything else happens. And that's when you make sales.
And it happens natural, and it feels good when it happens. It's like, this is great. These are the people I want to work with, I want to hang out with, spend more time with. Now we're doing business together. It feels really good. It feels, not to say you earned it, but like you just have a feeling like this all makes sense now. Like we're in a good spot. And it's not, I hook and sinkered them into a decision or anything. One thing I learned in business, and before I was even running my business in sales, was the key of being more interested than interesting. Because naturally a lot of salespeople will do more talking in the beginning, try to spew, a lot of times it's vomit information that the person you're selling to doesn't really need yet. And so you got to be more like a detective. You got to be interested in what's going on and observing, and then storytelling comes in. And you're really good at that. And and the other thing that you're great at, I mentioned it a moment ago, is this consistency factor that, I didn't even know how well you were doing or how well you weren't doing, because consistently I just keep seeing your podcasts, your live streams coming out over and over and over and over again. Talk about the value in consistency and how that maybe trumps just pure talent or strategy, and you got to have talent and strategy. I'm not trying to say you don't, but talk about the importance of how you've been showing up consistently now for many years.
Well, when I started my business, I came out to 5 simple steps for connecting with people. The first one was start, because so many of us do so much planning and then we worry about things and we strategize and we try to figure it out and we never really get started. But the 5th one, Mike, was be consistent, do it again. And you got to go through this process over and over and over. When you show up to a networking event, show up next week and the week after that, keep showing up. When you do your live streams, show up and do it next week and the week after that, because what that does is it breeds that consistency, breeds confidence and trust in other people. When they get to know you and like you, they build that trust by saying, this guy is a consistent guy. This guy is doing what he says, and he keeps showing up and makes a difference. And I think that is really vital because, visibility in business is so important. And if you don't stay consistent and keep doing what you need to do, you will not be visible. And so those are things that are really super important.
Yeah, it's the groundwork, right? It's the foundation. Yeah. Like anything you build has to have a strong foundation. Foundation number one to me is consistency, and like I said, you're doing a great job at that. The other thing, I'll speak for me, and I'd love to hear your version of this or kind of your reflection on this. When I do this podcast, I've been doing my show now since 2019. So it's six years and a couple months, right? I jump on these calls and I do it virtually like you do most of the time. And I'm meeting people, most of them for the first time. And I have the same excitement and energy like a little kid on Christmas morning that I do today that I did November 4th of 2019 when I put my first episode out. Like I still have that same, this is my favorite thing I get to do aside from hanging with family and my daughter. Like when I get to connect with someone, have this real conversation with you and grow and build relationships with people over time through the podcast. I know I'm doing what I was called to do and what God put me on this planet to do when I could say after 6 years, it hasn't faded, that excitement level. Do you have that same feeling?
Oh yeah, definitely. In fact, it has been the reason I've expanded and the amount that I I do live streaming and podcasting is because how much I enjoy it. And I think what a positive impact it has out there because, Mike, like you, we need more positive voices out there. People support me and sponsor me for all that I do because they want more positive voices out there. They want good things happening. And I'm telling you, I love talking to people and they just never, I mean, just the other day, I met a new friend who I became good friends with, who's a Hollywood stuntman who was in some of the biggest movies you and I have ever watched. And he did all these crazy stunts and now has gone into coaching and doing other stuff and is pulled out for the most part. I think he does little projects now and then because they keep trying to pull him back in. But it's interesting to meet people like that and people like Bob Berg and John David Mann, people that have great impact in this world. And then people that just are just great people. They're not famous or big names. They just are really interesting. They have an interesting story. They're just people that you really love to talk with. And yeah, I love it every day. I get to do this every week and I'm blessed by God to be able to do it.
Talk about the difference between the audience that you built over the last few years and the community that you built, because they're very different things.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, because community really cares. Community is all in together. Audience just shows up now and then when things are suiting them, when things are going well, and it's all based on circumstances mostly. It's like being happy. Happiness is really based on circumstances. We have good things happen to us, we're happy, right? We have bad things happen to us, we're not so happy, right? So it's very circumstantial. However, joy and perspective and all the things that I talk about are not based on that. And so it's really important to take a clear look at what you're basing your life on. And by the way, I know I'm getting a little sidelined, but my favorite equation by Chip Ingram, a great author, is called the divine equation, and it's C plus P equals E. And I always like to talk about this because it's circumstances plus perspective equals your experience. Your life experience is driven by your perspective every day. And so that's why you can go into a room and two people can look at the same exact thing and come out with a totally different story because they have a totally different perspective on what happened. They saw the same thing, but they have a totally different. First thing I would come out is if I went into a room and they had me watch something, they got in a car wreck and then they were taken to the hospital. First thing I would say would be, praise God, they're alive and they got to the hospital and they're doing great. That would be my perspective. Someone else might say, oh my goodness, it was horrible. It was tragic. They got in a car wreck and they were trying to get to their job and then they had to go to the hospital. It was horrible. The life was terrible. And I'm like, no, life isn't terrible. Things like that happen, sadly enough, but it depends how you look at it. So that's my little sideline on that, but perspective is so important.
I always knew perspective was important, but hearing you talk about it today and then just how it's really a integral part of your story, like what you've dealt with over the last few years and how it's that whole thing going back to your book again, right? Life happens, then you choose. I'm just sitting here thinking I can't wait to talk to Izzy about this, my daughter, and teach her about perspective and, a bad day happens. Okay, how can we choose to move forward and what do we learn from it? What perspective do we have or can we have to change the outlook on it? Or, that's one reason. I know this is a tangent. And we're going to get to I got a cool little rapid fire round for you before you jump. Cause I know I only got you for about 10 more minutes, but, storytelling with film. So I went to school for media production. So everyone in our class would be given the same footage. Field videographer would just capture a bunch of stuff and then we would have to edit it and turn it into a story. Well, what's cool is there'd be like 5 of us in a row. We all had the same footage to work with, but there were 5 different stories. Like how long you held on someone, how long, if you cut to the graveyard after the close up on someone and now there's that emotional connection. And then the next thing is more powerful, like a flower growing or something. And the way you put them in order this is becoming a inspirational story or this is becoming things are getting worse right? And it's all perspective based on the adjacency of the things that we see. And then in our head, we're in control of that, which is awesome. That's the inspiration of this whole conversation is we do get to control what we choose next or our perspective. Where we anybody has control over that. That's the exciting part about it. And bad things do happen to good people, but good people will continue to fight through it. Gonna have rough days, but then that perspective piece allows them to have better days that follow. And that's the hope we're all looking for.
Well, I think totally. And, it says in God's word that, we in this world, we will have trouble. So we already knew going in, there was going to be problems. It's all how you look at it and how you deal with it, because your perspective interprets your experience and your actions in life. So if you want to do good things, and also your brain rewires itself to what you're looking at and how you're looking at things. What your mindset is, your brain literally physically rewires itself to start looking for those things. So if you're thinking good things and good perspective and moving in a good direction, your brain's going to wire itself to look for that. If you do the opposite of that, it will actually wire itself to look for the negative and all this stuff. You're going to have a totally, totally different experience in life. And so I think that is so important. Perspective. Yeah, I just can't say it enough. It's so important. And my book, by the way, that not only talks about perspective overcoming challenges, very friendly to kids. It's very family friendly, and to people with poor eyesight, because I on purpose use a slightly bigger font to make it very user friendly. I put bold action points in there that people can always look at. So you can actually look at a page in my book and feel like you've gotten value off that one page, even if you don't read any more that day. And so I'm just throwing that out there, shameless plug, available on Amazon. It's just good for anybody, because we all need to have a good perspective, young or old. And I love that you talking about your daughter.
This will date us a little bit, but it almost seems like a radio station that you actually had to turn. It's a frequency, right? So when we have a mindset frequency of positivity, of perspective, the first thing that comes to us is, okay, that's bad, but how can we look at it in a good way? Like, that's a frequency our brain has to be tuned into. And then those thoughts happen more naturally. It's not like I got to sit here and now I got to game plan what my next page is going to look like. When that frequency's on, you walked into that room, like you said, and you already were having that immediate response of, oh God, thank God that these people are alive and okay, So that's a frequency thing. We're going to take a moment. We're going to turn the dial real quick and just give a shout out. We got to give a shout out to my company real quick. Shameless plug on the book. That's in the show notes. But also in the show notes is socialchameleon.us. That's my agency I started back in 2017. You press record, we handle the rest. It's podcasting done for you. You can check us out again at socialchameleon.us. And speaking of Riverside, we're recording this now. Russ, where are you at right now as we record?
I am in my office.
In Oregon, right?
In Salem, Oregon.
Yep. So he's all the way on the West Coast. I'm all the way in Philadelphia on the East Coast right now. And we're doing this virtually via riverside.fm. It's a great tool for podcasters, for businesses to record and capture high quality audio and video. And then your team can edit that together. There's a lot of tools built into it. Check that out at riverside.fm. And if you're wondering how you're listening to this on Apple, Spotify, or any of those audio players like Amazon Music, we get it there by libsyn.com, libsyn.com. If you want to sign up, you're starting a new podcast and you want 1 month to just test it out or check it out, use code BEGREAT, B-E GREAT, and that's the mic'd up code to get your first month free. All right, I got you for a couple minutes here, captive Russ. So we're going to do some rapid fire. I'm just going to say something quick, and first thing that pops off your head, your frequency that pops right out of your head. Favorite movie?
My favorite movie is Remember the Titans.
Awesome. That's a good one. Favorite podcast aside from mine or yours?
I think Susie Larson.
Okay. I haven't heard of hers. Is that inspirational, something similar to?
Yeah, it's a very inspirational, faith-driven podcast. Yeah.
Aside from your wife, what's one relationship that made a positive impact in your life? Maybe D. Scott. We won't talk about him because I know he's your partner on your show. but someone that you haven't mentioned yet that's made a huge positive impact on your life.
So outside of family, because I would say my parents, obviously, for God, my parents, and my beautiful wife for sure. But outside of that, and D. Scott has been a huge, huge positive influence. But I would say the yeah, I got to think about that one for a minute. Outside of those people, who would I go to first? Probably we have some great friends here in Salem, Craig and Kelly, who have done life with us from the beginning of our marriage, and then some other friends, Sam and Sherry. There's two couples. The reason I bring them both up is we have all done life together since we've got married, and they've been in our weddings and all that stuff. I would say their community and friendship and relationship has meant more to me and my wife than probably anything. So that's four people, but I would say the four of them.
Yeah, that's awesome that you have two other couples that are kind of doing life with you separately.
Right.
Then you guys can get coffee and share notes. How did you get through this? And I'm sure if you have kids, I know you have kids, but if they have kids similar ages usually, and it's really good to have other couples that you can, do life with. And we talked about community. Community could also be a very small, tight-knit community of your friends. And it's important to have some really close friends like that you can lean on. They can lean on you as well. What's one belief that you have today, super strong belief, maybe 10 years ago, it would have been different? So something that maybe over time you've changed your thinking on.
Well, probably my super strong belief would be on how I spend my time, because 10 years ago, I think I was still wrapped up in work and getting things done and scheduling. And as I've grown older, I'm 61 years young, and I look at time like what is most important to me. That is where my time should be spent and be driven by, which is my beautiful wife, my family, and my close friends. That's where I'm spending my time. Work will happen. And boy, I tell you, if I have to choose, it's not going to be work. It's going to be them. When I get off track from work and my beautiful wife reminds me that it's important to look at my choices as far as my time, I remember that and I stop everything and change. I divert because I want to focus on what's most important. So the change has been from work and all that stuff is a schedule I have to keep because it's stuff I have to do instead of it's stuff that I choose to do. And now I choose to do other things first.
Life happens and then you choose. And part of that choice is where we're spending our time and who we're spending it with. And I just want to thank you. Here's my little cheesy segue. Thank you for choosing to be on Mic'd Up today to spend time with our amazing audience. Russ, you're the man. I'm going to give you, final minute here. Any last words of wisdom that you want to give to our beautiful audience for tuning in today, and something that you just want to say, hey, if you're going to take away one thing, here's my message to you.
Well, I'm telling you, live life with a good perspective and connect with me today at russhedge.com because I would love to help you in that area. It doesn't cost anything for connection. It doesn't cost anything for building a relationship. People, when they support each other, when they collaborate together, when they just do life together, that's when beautiful things happen. And it has nothing to do with making a sale or doing a business transaction. It has everything to do with what is most important in life. And the most important thing after God and your family is how you look at life, and it's your perspective. So keep a positive perspective no matter what's going on. Keep hope in your life.
Amen to that. Something I want to also share, Russ, is that something I've learned over time is action speaks louder than words. And even though you and I don't talk as much, I mean, we keep in touch over the years, but your actions, I want you to know from afar, from your updates or social media, your own podcast, you coming on my show a couple times and sharing your heart with us, like your actions speak louder than words. So, I know you got beautiful books and words written in those books, but the way you actually choose to live your life is impacting me in a positive way and inspiring me in a positive way. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Mike.
Thank you guys for tuning in all the way to the end. Remember, if you like this episode, what to do, like it on YouTube, share it with a friend, a colleague, a business connection. And also, if you subscribe to us on YouTube, you got your notifications on. You're going to get more great episodes like Russ and his story today. We have over 280 plus episodes now. So there's a huge catalog for you guys to check out. Be great. Remember to be grateful in all that you do. And God bless. Thank you so much for being with us, Russ.
Thank you.
Cheers.